Hi, it's Kirk from the Divorce Workshop. You're listening to Life Changes Channel.
Life comes with many changes. Some are expected, some are unexpected, some positive, some challenging. But you don't have to navigate them alone. There are people who care and want to help. You're in the right place because I'm here to connect you with them. What is your next step? Making choices that involve change can be difficult. Where can you find the resources who have answers for your questions? Our team of experts and professionals can help you make informed decisions with less stress to help you manage these changes in your life easier. You'll also meet people just like you who share their stories to encourage you not to give up. Hi, I'm Dina Court, an author, blogger, publisher, and empowerment coach. Thank you for joining me today on the Life Changes Channel podcast, where we'll cover topics around life changes that you might be facing in your career and education, health, finances, relationships, parenting, aging, real estate, lifestyle, loss, and personal growth. This show started out as a Divorce Magazine Canada podcast, but so much of the content could also apply even if you aren't dealing with a divorce or separation. So now it's Life Changes Channel. There will still be lots of information to support you or someone you care about who is dealing with divorce or separation. I encourage you to go back and meet all the incredible guests in the earlier episodes. There is so much gold there. And hey, did you know we have a YouTube channel, a new Life Changes channel, and free magazines with articles from our team available across much of Alberta, as well as on our website, lifechangesmag.com. We also hold online divorce resource groups that are free to attend, and everyone is welcome. Check out the links in the show notes and be sure to join us. We love bringing experts to you. Please refer to our terms of service available on our website, lifechangesmag.com, and stay tuned at the end for the legal language. Ready? Here we go. Joining me on the show today in the Divorce Diaries series is Kirk Mosna. He and his wife, Karen, are developing a workbook, a divorce workbook, that is something you can take through different steps and stages as you experience a divorce. But he also has a personal story about alienation as a parent and how that has affected him and how he's dealing with that. It's a very interesting experience to consider because you aren't always aware of what can happen as a parent, even when you feel that you were very close to your child. So let's hear his story and learn more about this book that they are putting together for you, which will be coming out soon. Welcome, Kirk. I am really excited to talk to you today because you have some personal experience that we want to hear more about, and also what you were doing with that and how that has been part of the why and what you and your wife Karen are developing for people. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm very pleased to have you here, and I'm happy that you guys reached out and connected. So please tell us more about you and what you're up to.
Well, thanks for having us on. And we're Karen and I started the Divorce Workshop a couple of years ago, and it's we're both divorced, and we figured we'd be able to offer our skills and our experiences in helping others to kind of navigate this difficult journey. It's divorce is difficult, and it certainly is a journey, and it has, like every journey, there's ups and downs, and but it's part of it is it's very complex. And so when we started to do the research, and Karen's a thanatologist, so she has experience as a grief specialist. So her skills and her counseling skills all kind of came together with divorce, because there's a lot of grief in divorce. There's many emotions involved, and she studied most of them. Now, myself, I'm a designer, so I was able to offer my graphic skills and web design skills to kind of bring it all together and make it into something that's easy to present and presentable. And so what we chose to develop it is, rather than kind of a passive reading book, we decided to make what we call a workbook. So a workbook being kind of something that you are, you kind of get active in. It's hands-on. So we call it the Divorce Workshop workbook. It's a hands-on guide to everything divorce. So when I say hands-on, it means that you kind of have to do work, but it's all work that's fairly easy to get through, and it's like one page at a time, versus having to kind of read somebody else's experience of divorce and how they got through it, or how you should get through it. We help you to go through some self-tests to learn more about yourself and how you can get through this yourself. And then we do exercises in there, what we call, because it's a workbook, we call it workouts. So we try to keep it more like you're going to benefit from this in many ways. You're going to learn about yourself, and then you're going to get stronger by doing the exercises and the workouts. So having said that, we have like 6 units in it, and it starts with insights to help you to kind of get a handle of what divorce really is, and it helps you to kind of learn right from the get-go that most people's reaction to divorce is adversarial, and because let's face it, a lot of us are angry because this thing didn't work out, and this other person was, for one reason or another, you wanted to get a divorce. So there's a lot of emotions involved. So we said, you've got to, from the get-go, you need to kind of change your attitude about it. You treat it adversarially, then you're going to get a fight, and a fight can go on and on and on and on for years. And the best thing for divorce is to get it over with and move on with your life. So Insights helps you with strategies. And then we had legal, because let's face it, there's a lot of legal changes that you made when you got married, and then there's a lot of legal changes you have to undo when you get divorced. Then we have a section on emotions, which deals with some of the emotions in it. And as I mentioned earlier, there's workouts and tests that you can learn about yourself that help you to get control of your emotions, because that's really important. Because if not, as I said earlier, like about in Insights, if you don't, you're just going to get yourself into trouble. And when you get yourself into trouble, your ex is going to fight right back, and you're going to both be in trouble because it's going to last and last. Then we go to finance, because that is one of the biggest worries that we find in divorce is, now what? If it's really fair, you're splitting your assets and your incomes, and let's face it, it's like it's not going to be the same life that you had before, because it's basically slashed in half. And so finance is a big thing that we have to deal with. And then if you have children, then dealing with children and how to deal with them and what to look out for. There's a lot of talk in the children's about alienation. That's something that I got, that happened to me. And so it's kind of something that I want to urge people to become aware of as soon as possible, so you can deal with it. And then the final chapter, and which kind of the right place to be, is recovery, and how do you recover. So there's some exercises to help you to recover and to get to know yourself again, because in divorce, like in marriage, you become somewhat of a different person, because if you don't, then your marriage isn't going to work anyway. So, but you've got to basically you become a couple. Well, when you become divorced, you're no longer that. So you have to undo that, and you have to often refine who you are and become that new person, so that you can move on. Because if not, you don't heal, right? And yeah, you got to just keep moving on. So that's kind of in a nutshell. So the book's got about 100. It's going to be about 150 pages. We're at this is kind of our second time we're writing it through, but we're on chapter 5 right now. So we've got one more chapter to get through. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work because as I said, it's not like just writing and typing. It's because I have to do a lot of drawing. I needed to make the book very inviting, because one of the risks with when somebody says it's a workbook is that, I mean, I have to do work. I don't want to do work. Well, we try to make it as inviting as possible. So it's kind of a nicer looking book. So it's something that you can go through one page at a time. And there's some stories in there. It's just a way to kind of make it not a too much work for somebody, but something that they can kind of pick up, do a page, and then put it away, and then do another page when they feel like they need to do something. So,
Kirk,
that's our book.
There's so many things about this that are really beautiful. I feel like this is a labor of love that you two have. It's a gift that you are offering to people from your own experiences, from Karen's education as well around grief. And it's one thing to pick up a book and read, but to be able to customize it, work through it, interact with it from wherever you are at that time, and pace yourself and have these encouraging actions. Even like there's tangible things you can do. There's writing, or there's exercises, there's maybe you just read it and you don't know what you want to write at that moment, or you don't know how this applies to your life, but it still is in your mind and can really be beneficial. So I really appreciate how you've put a lot of intention and thought into the person using it. How will it be received? It's aesthetically pleasing, as well as it doesn't look like a daunting workbook, like this is going to be homework or heavy assignments. It's done to actually self-help, to actually give people opportunity to help, guided by what you've built. So I just think that's phenomenal.
Thank you.
And
you really hit it on the head, because really, when you're reading a book, it's not about you. It's about the author. And yeah, there's wisdom coming from the author, but what you said was really cool, is that it's about you, and you're doing the work, and you're discovering stuff about yourself, and the book is intended, and like you pointed out, it's intended to find out stuff about you, not about the author, right? Because the author, like we're the authors, obviously, but like when you read a passive reading book, it's all of the author's insights, not yours, where you start to become in control of this book, because it's about you, not about somebody else, right? And that's cool that you picked up on that so quickly.
Yeah, well, that's good that the intention is that clear. I love knowing that there are other people's stories and insights available, because so much of what the content I offer, like you speaking today, helps people out there know they aren't alone. It's very important that they do hear those stories and those insights, but then to also have a tool like what you've created, where they can interact with it. They start writing their own story and actually exploring, guided by you and the work that you and Karen have put into this. And they feel like there's someone who cares and has built this for them, and is now going to help them work through these very difficult portions of the healing process, and then offer them a recovery chapter at the end. So I think that's great. Now I want to unpack what you hinted about earlier, some of the experiences that you have had, and how that has been a very important area that you wanted to caution and help people navigate.
With regards to the alienation, is that's what you're referring to? Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah. I don't want to sound victim-y or anything, because let's face it, guys just don't. That's not what we're about. We always put on a strong face. So I'm gonna try to avoid being victim-y. So I'm
gonna hit a timeout here, Kirk, because I don't want guys like yourself or anybody listening. The men's mental health around this,
yes,
is very concerning. because they
Absolutely.
feel that they aren't, they have to be tough. They can't be the victim. When we talk about abuse, 1 in 4 men, 1 in 3 women are affected by abuse. That's a very high statistic. And a lot of people don't realize that men struggle with this. And men's mental health is just as important as women's, and they have struggles too. So I don't want to discount, the struggle, whether it was from the father's side or the mother's side. So please go ahead and, we're gonna use that filter to listen to your story.
Well, thank you for saying that. Yeah, you're right. It's our mental health is like just as important, and we're just as fragile and vulnerable, sometimes more, because people don't like, because as a society, we frown upon weak men. That's just not what we're supposed to be. So, but yeah, you're right. We're vulnerable. Our mental health is can be affected. I I feel pretty good. I wish I had been more aware of it. So really, okay. So essentially, what happened in my experience is I I I I told my ex that it's time that we get a divorce, and she was not too happy about that idea. It's not something that she wanted, um, and she, from the onset, she digested it, came back to me the next day, and she says, "I'm going to make your life hell." And this is so. I was at the dinner we were having lunch. I was having lunch with my son at the in the kitchen, and she came up and said, "I'm going to make your life hell." And so, and she did. She was very good at that. And so that was kind of the beginning of it. And so, what happened after that is, as I lived in the house for another, I'm going to say another 6 months, and then she told me at the beginning of the January, she says, "It's okay. So now you're moving out." I says, "Okay, fine." So I moved out, and at that point, I kept in touch with my children. My oldest son, I regularly saw. My younger son, he's very much like me. He's a graphic designer and a podcaster and a videographer, and he's just into tech and all that stuff. So he was 17 at the time, and he had just started developing his YouTube channel and so on. So he would constantly send me like images and say, "Kirk, or Pa, can you help me? I've got to get this up by 5 o'clock, and I need this image redone. Can you help me? How do you do it?" And so I could whip these things off pretty quickly for him. So I helped him. So I was living somewhere else, but I was still basically helping him do his work. And we had always had a good relationship. So, and we continued that for about another 8 months and so on. And then my ex decided that she was going to give my mother a piece of her mind, because she felt that my mother was the cause of the divorce, which obviously she wasn't, because my mother didn't live with us. My mother would see us very, very seldomly, actually. And so she called my mother up and called her every name in the book, and said that I was a weasel, and that my mother was, I don't want to even say the words here, but every name in the book. And my mother was, at the time, was 83. And so all my mother could do is really say, "I'm sorry," and she hung up. And so she hung up on it. Now I find out from my oldest son that she had done this. She had made this call in front of my children as well. So this was kind of. It seemed like this is at the point when my youngest son decided to, I guess you could say, ghost me, as they say, young people say. So I had only, like I said, prior to that, I had regular contact with them, and I would help them every opportunity I could. And then this seemed to happen, and then uh, uh, I saw my son 5 years ago, after I dropped off my oldest son to my ex's sisters on Christmas. I asked if my son could come out, my younger son come out. He sat in the car with me for 5 minutes, and we talked for a few minutes, and then he went back, and I haven't talked to him or seen him since. He won't respond to my emails or anything. Emails, text, phone calls. I get nothing. So at this point, I had not even known what the word, like I knew what an alien was because that was in science fiction, but I didn't know what alienation was. So parental alienation. So I started to read up on this, and I had met Karen about 5 years ago, and she started to talk about what this word alienation was. And she said, yeah, people call it a bunch of different things: coercive control, abuse by proxy, or alienation. So we started to do some research into this, and we found Dr. Amy Baker. She's a very famous child psychologist who has done a lot of work in alienation, parental alienation. And she said, you call it whatever you want, but she calls it alienation. So I'm just going to call it alienation. So that was like in a kind of in a very, very short, like that was 5 years of alienation. So it's been about 6 years now since I really had a chance to see my youngest son, and he's now 24. So parts of the problem was that I was not aware of this thing called alienation. So that was part of the first problem. The second was I didn't know I was at risk of it. Like I didn't know I as a father who had always been like connected with my kids, either through music, through homework, and through graphics and videos, and helping them with all their computer related projects and school projects. I didn't know I was at risk of that because I thought I had an excellent relationship with them, and we laughed, and we did everything together, and then all of a sudden it happened. So I didn't realize I was at risk of it. Okay, so and then I didn't even. I guess I could say that I didn't know what to look for either, but all I knew was this. My son, my youngest son, wasn't talking to me anymore, and I couldn't get a hold of him. And then my oldest son, who I was continuing to talk to, would tell me stuff of what was going on and the kind of things that were being said about me to my children, to our friends, to her family, and so on. So I do now know what alienation is. I know what children do. I know what exes do in order to alienate you from your family. I have a sense of why they do it, and it's totally messed up thing because it really, when you like the way Amy Baker describes it, it is child abuse. And child abuse, like I don't think my ex sees it that way. She sees it that she needs to like to punish me for divorcing her, and what she's doing is she's punishing me through my children. But in fact, what she's doing is she's punishing me, but she's also punishing my children, and that is the abuse part. And that is something that people who alienate, like, they don't get it because they're so angry, or they're so wrapped up in making your life hell, right? Which is what her promise was, that they don't really kind of understand that. So
It sounds very vindictive and manipulative.
Vindictive, good word.
Manipulating the children's perception of reality with what is their motive? To alienate, yes, to punish, gain control, like you said, coercive control is another term for this.
Yes.
It's very unfortunate. But tell us more what you've learned and
well, manipulation, that's a great word, because that is in fact what it is. It's manipulating a young person's mind who is very impressionable, and where children, until they reach a certain age, like, when kids get, in their 20s, they don't really care what you say, right?
But they trust a parent.
They trust, and especially young children, they trust because that's like, you're their parent, like you're supposed to know stuff. So younger children, but even up to 17, 18-year-olds, they can be manipulated. And Dr. Amy Baker says, yeah, they can be manipulated, because this is why you'll find young people joining gangs and being kind of coerced into doing drugs and doing other things that are not good for them. So to think that a teenager cannot be manipulated, psychologically manipulated, isn't true. But it just, I guess the point I was trying to say is that you need to address it as the alienated or targeted parent. You need to address it as soon as possible, because as they get older, there's less and less you can do. So as I was saying with me, my children were 17 and 22. So it's not like I could go to court and say, my ex is not manipulating my children, so they won't see me, because the courts are going to say, sorry, it's like they're almost adults. They have their own minds at this point. So the idea then is like, if you have young children and you observe certain things that your children are doing or saying, and for example, if they start calling you by your first name, that's not a good thing. It suggests that you are no longer their dad or their mother. Another example is if they start talking and criticizing you like an adult would. Like, for example, if my ex was spreading news, when we separated, I was living somewhere else. I started to date after about 6 months. And so my ex would tell my children that I was whoring around. I was dating. She tells them I'm whoring around. And she said that my oldest son was saying that, yeah, she told anybody who would listen. So all our family, friends, and so on. That was the message. It wasn't dating, it was whoring around. So if your child says, oh, you're whoring around, and your child in that kind of language is really not their like they're 12 years old and they're saying that, well, sounds like somebody else is telling them that. Or if they say, you're not a good money manager, well, that's been put in their heads rather than them formulating that sort of criticism of you. So those are the kinds of things that come up and you start to observe. Now, it's something you can like, if you see this in your children, you can do something about it right away. Now, in my case, I couldn't do anything because I couldn't see my children. So it wasn't like I could, basically connect with my child and say, let's kind of talk about this, or let's do something together, because my child wasn't willing to see me. But if you do have a child that is 12, 13, 14 years old, and you're seeing them, the best approach, and this is something that Dr. Baker had mentioned, was that what you need to do is you need to connect with them and not correct them. So she has this 5-stage thing that basically addresses how to connect versus correct. And it's a knee-jerk reaction to say, for example, if your kid says you're whoring around, it's your knee-jerk reaction is to say, oh, who told you that? That's not true. Like, I can prove it. I'm just dating. I'm not whoring around. And so that's not what you're supposed to do, because that's putting them on the defense. So imagine you're on the defense, and then 2 seconds later you get a text from a woman you're dating, and it's like, oh, and they happen to see on your phone who it's from. Well, they're like, you're being defensive, and they're seeing proof of this now on your phone. So what Dr. Baker says is just address it in a different way. Connect with them. Say, I understand that you're angry about this, and I really appreciate you telling me this. And you basically go through this thing where you're connecting rather than trying to, correct them. You're just connecting and saying, I understand you're angry, and so on. And the goal is to really validate their feelings rather than correct them. Because, like, as I said, a knee-jerk reaction as people is like, if somebody accuses you of something, your knee-jerk reaction is to say, no, that didn't happen, right? It's like, who said that? Like, and get angry. Well, that's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to lead up to telling them, after we connect with them and we validate them, is to say, I understand that what you're saying makes you angry, but it's not what you like. That's not true. What you've been told. And so, but you don't kind of like try to become the lawyer and say, no, this and this, and it's untrue, and your mother's just doing that to hurt me, and blah blah blah. That's the worst thing you can do. That's what she says. So instead, what you're trying to do is you try to connect with them and to show them that you really do love them and care about them, and you kind of slip in the idea that you that the things that you've been accused of are not true. And then the final thing is just to appeal to their kind of like emotional side and say, like, I'm really glad that you brought this up, because if I was, if I heard that about somebody, I probably too would be upset. So it's really a matter of connecting and validating them and showing them that you're lovable, you care about them, and that is what a parent is supposed to do. So unfortunately, some of the mistakes I made was when I told my ex that I want a divorce. I didn't bring the whole family together, and as a couple, we didn't tell the kids that we were going to be divorced. And that was a mistake of mine. And I didn't do the research, and I should have. But now I know that the best way to handle a situation like when you have kids is to announce it as a couple rather than it's one-sided. So, and then what happened in my case is she told them her side of the story, which is, I'm a bad person and this and that, and I'm, whatever and how she framed it, which I can understand, is that I abandoned them. And that is a very, very, very typical alienation strategy, because it's not that our marriage didn't work and we needed to, like, for the sake of everybody, we needed to separate and divorce. No, it was all my doing, and I was abandoning them. No, I wasn't divorcing her. I was abandoning them, right? And that I could see as a child could, even as old as 17, could say, oh, that's not a good thing. He must be a bad person if he abandoned us. So, if anyone who's listening is considering divorcing and you're announcing it, make sure that you bring your whole family together and announce it as a couple rather than hear it from one side only, because that's what happened with me.
I think that's really great advice too, Kirk, because I've heard from some divorce coaches and mediators that the optimal time to see them is when you're in the contemplation stage. You can start planning, even role playing some of those difficult conversations, so that there is less of a negative impact and less of a strong reaction. You've already explored some, what now, what will happen, what now, like, so here's what is going to happen, but I've already thought through how this maybe could work, and not just drop a bomb and walk away, and who knows, what falls out of that, and the reactions and the fear and the terror and the drama that is created. So, the whole rival competitiveness will also come out, where the kids are caught in the middle, and which parent is right, and who's playing dirty, and who's just unaware maybe even of
Absolutely.
what the rules of this war are. So I think it's really interesting. And I just heard something at a conference yesterday that really stuck with me, is if someone shows you red flags, or you see red flags, don't try and change the color.
Yeah, that's something that Karen always says. She goes, if someone shows you who they are, believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly the same thing as you're saying. So you're right, and mediation would help, and to get a lot of that up front. However, I don't know if it would have worked with my ex, because like I was saying, her knee-jerk reaction was vindictiveness, and how I'm going to get you back, and I'm going to make your life hell. So one of the tests that we do in our book is to find out who you're divorcing, and so it makes you kind of aware of, and to start to study like a detective would, in your mind and on paper, who you're divorcing. And to follow that up, we also do a test, like beside it, who you are, because you might be your worst enemy. So if you're very combative, and you've got to win every single fight, and every argument is well, you're going to be the problem. However, like I said, but if you take that test and you find out who you're really divorcing, and you find, and what we kind of rated as to, how, like, there's about 10 or 12 questions that kind of go through it, and the depending on what you score, it kind of tells you where you should be going in terms of legal help. And like, I did a DIY divorce. I don't know how I did it, but I did it because I did it immediately. And that was the thing. So I was still in the house, and this was like 3 days after I announced it. I said, she said, okay, fine, we're going to divorce. And I said, okay, well, she said, I'm going to go get a lawyer. I said, well, before you do that, I said, a lawyer is going to cost us at least 10,000 each. Okay. Minimally. Okay. So I said, rather than doing that, why don't we just do this like together, and do it like online? And we did it online. We hammered out a separation agreement. I gave her everything, so it was really easy for her. So it's not it wasn't difficult. I just tried to be as fair. It was me who was looking for this divorce, so I was willing to kind of just be as fair as anybody could be, and I gave her, like I said, pretty much everything. And so because of that, like, I was able to, like I said, do a DIY divorce, or like what's another, kitchen table divorce, they call it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the other one. Yeah, DIY. I'm handyman. But part of it says, like, if you score when you do this, who am I divorcing and who you are, and you go through it, and part of it, what it does is it helps you to say, okay, you like, if you're very amicable, yeah, you could do what I did. I don't know why. Like, the way I did it is I appealed to her sense of what, like, she valued money very much. So I said, well, if you want to if you want to put your lawyers' kids through school, well, let's go to see a lawyer. I said, I don't really like that idea. I'd rather us do it ourselves, and we can get through this. And so that worked for me. However, had I gone the route that she had said, because she wanted to go legal, like through lawyers, I don't know if I'd be divorced right now, because she was so difficult, and she wanted everything that she could possibly put on the table. And so one of the part of the advice that we've got from legal people and and for ourselves is to say, get it done as quickly as you can, because if it lingers, it just goes on and on and on, and it just gets, as everybody knows, it just gets more and more expensive. And so what's that?
And messy.
And messy, right? And and
more
so
collateral damage.
Collateral damage is huge. Well, because if you have kids, these are the kinds of things. So if the other person doesn't get what they want, what are they going to do? They're going to get back at you one way or the other. And children, going back to alienation, they're the best, kind of defense for somebody who's trying to alienate you, right? Or trying to get back at you. Like the industry is talking about a bunch of different things. They call, there's a lot of talk about narcissism and NPD and so on. And, the more the person is like this, and suffers from NPD, or makes you suffer from NPD, the more likely they're going to be alienators, because they just have to win, right? That's just their way. And so again, it's just get it going, get through it as quickly as you can. And you might, it's a lot of work. But the quicker you get it done, the happier you're going to be. And so my divorce went through really quickly. Karen's was different. She had similar situations, like similar kind of person, who had to make her life miserable, and hers is it's taken a lot longer, and it just is it's just so stressful on your emotions.
Very thanks, Kirk. I like that. I think that's a good place to kind of wrap up today. Be cooperative, try and get through this as quick as you can. Consider other options that you can hopefully do amicably, and watch for those red flags where you may be facing some alienation as a parent. I think that's amazing. So your contact information will be shared in the show notes so people can reach out and connect with you. And I really highly recommend that people check out your Instagram, your social media posts, because there's so much value. You guys have put out some really great content there that is very informative and supportive and encouraging for people around divorce and separation. So we are excited to be watching for your new workbook that's coming out, and we'll have you and Karen back on the show and introduce the book when that is available as well. And there's so much gold that you guys have to offer. Thank you for the gift that you're creating for everyone, and we will definitely talk again.
Well, thanks for inviting us on the show. It was a real pleasure meeting you, and you're doing great work, and what a great service you're providing for people going through this very difficult journey. So thank you very much.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hopefully you heard something today that helps you wherever you might be in life. Do you have questions or a suggestion for a topic you want to know more about? Let me know. Check the show notes for all the contact information. Follow this podcast and find us on social. Know anyone who might find this information helpful? Be a friend and share it. And hey, thank you for hanging out with me today. Keep smiling that beautiful smile. The world needs your sunshine. It means a lot that you spend this time with us and meet our experts and professionals who can help you through whatever life changes you're facing. please refer to our terms of service available on our website, lifechangesmag.com. The link is in the show notes. Our disclaimer: Divorce Magazine Canada, Life Changes Magazine and channel, and divorce resource groups are intended to educate and provide quality, credible resource information. The contents should not be used as factual until consultation with the appropriate professionals for any guidance. Divorce Magazine Canada, Life Changes Magazine, and Life Changes channel, as well as the divorce resource groups, do not constitute endorsements for, nor liability for any claims made in the presenting of this information.